Part of it was due to the fact that we weren't able to attract, you know, the proper trained people in the category. I mean, through merit system, there were certain benchmarks people had to meet, and when you have the bulk of your staff operating on waivers because you can't hire people or were willing to come and work here, so you have to change that paradigm. And then, you know, when Kevin Mantle came in and, you know, was running things, I mean, for about the next 5-6 years, things seemed to be working really, really well, and we actually got some state recognition for a well-run type of a program, and then all of a sudden things kind of unraveled again. I mean, for out of the clear blue. I mean, the board sitting here, I mean, you know, some people think we as board members are micromanaging or they're, you know, calling the shots and pulling the levers. I mean, we learn about some of these system failures about the same time the general public does. And I mean, it's with dismay that we, you know, that we have to go through this because of the way the programs seem to set up designed to fail. So we've got to come up with a model that's going to guarantee us long-term success, not just another. And I think that's where we see Eric. I mean, I think you bring a breath of fresh air and a fresh talent in terms of administrative responsibilities, in terms of the accountability and making sure that we find the best people possible to fill the slots and not just take, you know, what's available, but strive to do that. And I know, Mel, you worked real hard to bring that. I mean, your life story is that success story. I mean, in terms of how you make yourself better at what you do, not just accept what you have, but strive to be better. And I think we have a chance to, but I think now within this new environment, and I think what Maria did for us is it gave the staff in the program a respite from, to allow, I think, what we've seen emerge under, you know, your leadership now with Health and Social Services and with Community Social Services. So I'm more than accepting of the idea that we kind of maybe reunify and go back to that more traditional organizational structure. But keep in mind, even, you know, even as small as we are, we have functions. I mean, the literature that's out online, the news stories that come out literally weekly with the LA County system. If we think we have problems, and I'm not saying that we don't have problems, I'm not saying we're going to continue to maybe have problems. I got to tell you, our system, you know, hand over fist is 10 times, 1,000 times better than what has been functioning down in the LA County area. And the Board of Supervisors down there is just, you know, they're almost like at their wits' end in terms of dealing with just a constant failure. And there are young people who are actually harmed by the system. And of course, then you see that kind of media and press comes out, and then people automatically think that that's true in all localities, not just in LA. And LA is a big system that is, I mean, it's amazing that they haven't had a total collapse, and they seem to be on the verge of that. And the good news is we don't have to be like LA. We've got the smallness and the personalness to be able to run, I think, a good program that takes care of the needs of the kids, the families, you know, and maybe can be a model for the rest of the state. So I think the opportunity is there. And that's really what Maria was striving for, I think, Mr. Chairman, and what she was trying to communicate is not to lose that progress that she was able to make in terms of, you know, attitudinal, employee attitudes and our attitude towards employees in terms of accountability and responsibility. And I think you embrace that with what you're proposing here. Yes. Even though it may not be the model or structure that Maria herself does. But as long as we maintain the principles that she was able to achieve, that's how we respect the work that she's done. And she did a phenomenal job, I think.
She was able to do that in less than half time with not much help from the program manager, because the program manager didn't come on until I think it was last spring.
But she was able to break the mold in terms of some of the
and the
personnel.
key was getting rid of the personnel problems.
Yeah.
And Eric and I are totally in sync with her on that. We do not have time to mess around with poor employees.
You make that very clear in your, I think it's your second or third paragraph here where I read that. I mean, we don't have time.
Yeah, we can't afford poor employees.
Why did it?
No,
Why did it take until Maria's arrival to take the position to not waste time with poor employees? I guess that's part of it. I don't understand.
We had a director in before Maria left, or Maria came on board, who was there probably about 4.5 years, I think. And she had some bad employees in there, but she wasn't as strong a director as it takes to really weed those people out. And, you know, it's not easy once they pass probation. then they have property rights to their job, and it takes a lot of time and effort.
And we got
and
involved
support
with a couple
to get them.
personnel actions that really got to be, and, you know, it was on the legal end, you know, we all knew what we wanted, but legally, we didn't have the ability to have what we wanted. I mean, we were, and it had to go through that due process, and it was a
And due process takes time,
Yeah.
and truthfully, Maria kind of came in on the end of that due process, but
But-
there was one left there that she
But
got rid of that needed
But
to go.
that, yeah, but that director that you're referring to there, she inherited, she wasn't like she had created or hired these people, she inherited, and some of these employee situations go back 10, 15, 20 years, and the vetting process and the leadership and management process and the way the system operated, where we basically accepted a lot of, I would say, underqualified folks, you know, functioning in critical areas when they should never have been allowed to function in that area.
Well, I'll be honest with you, we at the moment do not have any master's level employees in child welfare. In fact, we don't have in adult services either. We have some bachelors, we have some AAs. We are insistent that they all complete child welfare core training, which is 2 years. We try to insist that they go to training. Now, we do have a master's candidate coming in June, that Maria hired back in the fall to come as soon as she's out of school. So,
You're not
I'm with-
counting yourself because you're a master's candidate.
well, but I've got a ways to go, and I'm not gonna be a master's in social work.
Okay, you know what I'd like to do, is I'd like to just, because I wanna make sure my vote doing this correctly. The reason I'm so, you know, passionate, if you will, about it is because I was involved there when I first came on the board, and I saw firsthand some of the atrocities and the bad things that were going on with the kids, and this department was, you know, probably responsible for, and I saw it get fixed. So, I mean, I sort of like, you know, use the analogy, say Apple Computer, you know, if you will, okay? The company was wrecked, you know, after Steve Jobs built it up. They get, you know, that he comes back, okay? He fixes it, and it's going well. Now, just because he leaves, you know, like Marie hasn't even been gone a month. So, after she's brought this up, she takes the time to give us a plan as she sees it successful. And you liken that to like a Steve Jobs to Apple. And he's gone for a month, and then previous people that were involved, when it was a mess, just want to disregard the person that helped. I just want to make sure that what we are disregarding, if you will, or not heeding her advice, there's good reason, and that it's documented, and if it backfires, you know, it's important. This isn't, you know, to be taken lightly. And I don't know, it just seems like, you know, she's given her advice, she's come, she's done the job, she's brought us from, you know, a dark moment in that department to the shining star where we're getting awards from the state. Then she gives us a plan, it's not even attached in our information. None of the board members have really even know what the plan is, and then now we're ready to take a vote to do something that I don't know follows the plan. I just think it smacks of bad taste and not a very good. We owe her to compare apples to apples and see. And maybe this plan is pretty much the same.
That may be fair, and I don't think we necessarily have to act on this today. I think we hold it over for another week isn't going to cause us a problem. I guess maybe where I'm coming from is I've had 2 or 3 conversations with Maria since her, you know, retirement here in the last 2-3 weeks. I mean, I had an opportunity to encounter her, and you've had, even before that, we had at least 2 or 3 conversations talking about what she feels the future should hold. And she doesn't have a real problem with either Melody or, in this case, with Eric. I mean, she wants to make sure that the reforms that she kind of fostered and fought for and whatever remain intact. And I indicated to her, I mean, that's exactly where I think the board should be vigilant to be able to, advance, because I don't want to see us go backwards, I want to see us go forwards. And so I think that I'm not necessarily, I guess maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the curve in that respect, because I've had the opportunity to interact with Maria as she was departing. And so a lot of what we're talking about, what she's talking about here in the memo, is what we verbally, discussed. And so, I mean, if it makes it easier for the board, I'm all in favor of taking as much time as we need till we make the best decision possible, not being in that big of a hurry. In the meantime, we've got staff in place that is conducting business, so it's not like we're going to be going off the edge of the cliff because we didn't do something today.
Bob has a comment, and Richard wants to say.
I don't want to take anything away from Maria. Well, she did a terrific job, but I think Melanie and Eric, I don't want to take anything away from them either. I mean, it's not like Maria did it all by herself. And they all work together as a team, and, for Melanie and Eric to take it on, I'm more than confident to make that decision today. I mean, I don't know what else I need to know. I put it off. You guys, if you want to put it off, that's fine, but I don't know what new things I'll learn between now and next Tuesday.
Good idea.
I have total confidence in Melanie, and Eric. I don't see any need to, again, Maria, I don't want to take anything away from her, but she didn't do it all by herself.
I just want to make a couple points of clarification with the child support services is where the award of recognition was made. That's a separate department now from what we're talking about with the child.
That was support services,
Welfare
not.
services. Yeah, they did a great job, but that department is now being made its own department. We're recruiting for a director for her program manager for that department. In the case of the department we're talking about now, Eric's been running that department for how long now? Because as you know, Maria's been out on medical leave for quite some time, and this doesn't really represent a significant departure from what we're doing right now.
Okay, yeah, well, if you don't, I would just like to go through the recommendations,
Right.
see how that, maybe we say, oh, no, we're doing that, oh, we're doing that, oh, we're
Okay.
doing that. And then the one little thing we're not doing is no big deal. I mean, I think that's would be, so like, the recommendations, first point is return Child and Family Services Department to the Lassen County Health and Human Services, and we're doing that. Recruit and train a full-time Director of Child and Family Services, due to be rendered by the Director of Child and Family Services. That's also, that's what part of G2 does, is that correct? Or is that?
No, G2 is strictly about the child support services department.
Yeah, because the thing, what it's so confusing is like, there's sometimes it's first the child and then another family and then, but everything else is the same except the one word. So where she says recruit and retain a full-time Director of Child and Family Services, the duties to be rendered by Director of Child and Family Services are to be specific to the Child and Family Services Department with no administrative responsibilities for alternate social service programs. So
her recommendation is that we would hire a director who would be just the director over Child and Family Services. In other small departments, generally that director, or typically it's a program manager in small counties, also has responsibility for adult services, which
And
is
I
a small
remember,
unit
yeah.
compared to child family.
she felt that without having somebody to give the focus just on the child part of it, it was going to kind of meld back into the problems we had in the past. And so anyhow, what's the reasoning for not doing that?
Well, because, and she also has in here the recommendation to hire a program manager. A program manager does that, but Child and Family Services doesn't stand alone. They really need a lot of support from behavioral health, eligibility services, even public health. Some of those services they're already purchasing, some of them they get because we're already there. Health and Social Services has been managing their financial and contract issues since Maria took over. Just because they're already part of that budget, and it just made it easier for us to manage it. It was something she didn't have to do. I understand her fears, but this is a great unit that she's leaving behind. There's 2 strong supervisors in there, the staff are doing a great job, they're working together as a team. They need a chance at this point to really be able to become part of an even larger team of people who are also working to provide services for children and their families.
I think, you know, and like you say, and I agree with Jim, you know, that you guys are, you know, and Eric are the right people, but I mean, I think, and you're saying, you know, with your team now, it could work, but I mean, what happens if one of the team members move on and then you have a structure that could be successful with, you know, a couple of all-stars now, but if you know, you replace.
Well, it's about hiring the right people and continuing to hire the right people and getting rid of the wrong people. But I can offer you
What
this.
it boils down to, if you look on page 3 of Maria's handout, it's the 4th bullet under recommendations reasoning. And I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, and I think what we have to kind of zero in on, it says current social worker staffing is stabilized with a highly qualified, well-experienced, and committed workforce in place. So that's what she's transitioning over, that's what you're basically accepting and dealing with. Now, she states here, a daily on-site dedicated director will act as a tremendous support to both the Child and Family Services Department staff and its clientele. So she envisions that under Health and Social Services, the person that would be supervising this dedicated, committed workforce that we have in place would be one person who that's their sole responsibility. What you're suggesting under your plan is that part of Eric's time, because he's supervising a couple other functions within Health and Social Services, would have part of his time would be dedicated to doing that, but it wouldn't be full-time dedicated to doing that. And the question comes down to, do we need a full-time person dedicated to do it, or is it something that can be done and accomplished given Eric's skill and ability? And I mean, the department's recommending that we go with that arrangement. My main concern, whether we have one person or we have a part-time person or we have somebody else, as long as we maintain what we have there and grow upon that, that's what the outcome has got to be. And we talked about efficiencies and so forth. I mean, the reason why it was a full-time over on Maria's, actually when it came down to it, it was really only half-time, because Maria divided her time half-time between Child and Family Services and then Child Support Services. So she was the director, and she was doing it half-time. And I would say that Eric is going to, I would have to say, probably consumed most of her half-time. She probably spent far more than half-time.
When she was able to be there.
She was able to be there to do that, because we had some definite issues there. But I think a lot of those issues have been tackled. I think she's did a phenomenal job of weeding out some of the problem areas. It required some really tough personnel decisions being made and actions taken. And you know, I don't want to see us slip back from that particular position.
And here's, you know, Jim, you were there in 2003.
That was
When it was recommended to break up the department into separate departments. Part of the reasoning behind that was because there were problems with Child Protective Services. And you couldn't do anything about the person who was in charge, because that person was a deputy director and not an at-will employee. And so that's why they made the recommendation to break up the departments, make them all separate departments, give them department heads who were all at will, so that that problem wouldn't be there. With the staffing I'm proposing, I'm an at-will employee as the agency director. Eric is an at-will employee as
And that's different from where we were in 2003.
of Social Services.
Yeah.
And if this arrangement doesn't work, and in fact, we can go ahead and leave it in the position in the budget for this year, but if this arrangement doesn't work, you have the ability to do something about me, you have the ability to do something about Eric, and, you know, or you could just tell me and Eric, we're done with this, we want to hire a director, recruit, and hire one. I mean, it leaves you lots of options.
You know, the question comes down to, though, is, Mr. Chairman, I think is, you know, is Eric capable of being the champion for the department? And that's what she's looking for, is a champion, somebody who doesn't have divided loyalties. And I think that's what we have to look at with the organization. And if that's the case, then I think the argument she advances is, probably has some validity. My attitude, just from my observations and listening to the reports, that what you're proposing does not promote that. In other words, I see Mr. Nielsen as being a champion for not only the departments he's directly in charge of, the programs that he's directly in charge of supervising and being responsible, making personnel decisions, making budgetary decisions, making whatever kind of decisions that are necessary, program and policy decisions, is going to be done in a straightforward fashion. And if it wasn't, then obviously we've got a bad arrangement set up there anyway.
Well, and Eric's always the same. One thing Eric has in common with Maria that's important here, he's very clear on the direction that he gives his staff, and he's very clear on the role that employees are expected to play in the larger scope of human services that we're providing to our clients. Because it's not just child welfare, it's not just cash aid, it's not just mental health services, it's the whole deal.
But, okay, I'm gonna go through each of these, so if everybody keeps, I mean, even if we need to stay here till an hour now, okay. So, recruit and retain a full-time, so you go against that. Now, what, is it because of money? I mean, gets.
No, I just don't think it's necessary to have
Okay.
another department head
Okay, that's
when a small department like ours can manage that without a department head.
So the salary and benefits for the director of child, that's irrelevant, because we're not gonna hire one. Executive leadership will be provided by the director of child and family services, but that's not gonna happen, because we're not, this plan doesn't include that.
But the essence of that is that the Health and Human Services Director will provide the direction, we agree on that.
Okay. Health and Human Services Administration will be the director of child and family, so how is that gonna be?
That's
We
me.
agree on that.
Okay, that's agreed, so basically, so the main difference is instead of hiring in a separate person to deal with that, you guys are gonna take that in.
Yes, what we're recommending is to, instead of a director, go ahead and fill the program manager position, because that's a person who's there on site every day, providing support to the supervisors, providing support to the director, getting communications from the director, and ensuring that the staff are following the direction that the director has set.
How many hours a day will the director, in this case, Mr. Nielsen, be actually engaging this program?
You know, as an administrator, administrators have a variety of duties that are not, oh my God, tell me all about the cases. That's what a program manager is there for. And even that, a program manager has a lot of duties that are more administrative and less case management. We've got two very strong supervisors there who are very able to provide the case management direction. What they need is someone to manage all those administrative duties for them so that they get done, so they have contracts in place, so that the money is there, that overtime is managed, that if they need additional support, we make sure they get it. It's our job as administrators to make sure they have everything they need to do their jobs, and that's training, support, staff, money for services for clients, cars. I mean, it's a whole variety of things. So they do need a full-time director, but they don't need the full-time attention of a director. They just need a director who's there to do director stuff for them. And especially having a program manager there on site as that everyday.
Where's the personnel decisions going to be made in terms of who determines who will be hired to fill a position? Is that going to be handled at the supervisor level? Is it going to be handled at the program
Well, the way we handle it,
director's level or manager's level? Is it going to be handled at the director's level?
the way we handle it, well, the way Eric handles it in social services is line staff. Generally, he participates in those interviews and with the supervisors or managers, whatever position's being filled, and works with them, makes recommendations. Supervisors and managers, often I'm sitting on that panel along with Eric, and we talk about who's going to fill those positions. The program manager interviews we just conducted, we brought in Bill Jost, the retired program manager who left us back in December. And, you know, we make those at the program manager or higher level.
Well, the reason why I ask, because I think it's very significant, because that's where I think the role of the director becomes pronounced. And as you delegate down, in the past, what happened is that instead of the director being responsible for making the ultimate decisions in that area. They delegated it down to almost to line staff level. And I think the reason why we had the dysfunctional line staff at one time was because of the fact it was being made at the kind of the lowest threshold between the basic caseworkers and their supervisor, eligibility supervisors or whatever, and then occasionally the program manager would be involved, and the directors and above were not. And I think that's what we want to make sure and avoid. I mean, I want to hear that, and if you've got somebody who's functioning on a waiver that don't meet the minimum qualifications, I think that automatically, in order to sign off on those decisions, it should be a discussion that takes place between the director of the department and you as the Health and Social Services Director, and maybe in concert working with personnel in the County Administrative Office, because every time we buy in somebody underqualified, you create the opportunity for a non-functioning employee. And it's not that they're bad people, it's that they just don't have the skill sets that are expected for that particular job that had been defined. And if the definition of the job is such that it doesn't require that, then let's change the description and make it just be anybody who walks in off the street, and then you're good.
Well, I can tell you, the policy in Health and Social Services is that no one hires anybody without my
Signing off.
authority.
Okay. And
And they have to sell it to me, why they want to hire this
I gotta
person.
tell you, I go to bed at night sleeping a lot more comfortably knowing that that's the policy that we have in place today, because I count on people like Melody to do that, and I know she does that well. In years past, that hasn't been the case, and I gotta tell you, this county has bought a lot more, what do you call it? When you have lawsuits and you settle, I mean, yeah, I guess settlements, but there's another term that you guys use, the insurance folks. We're buying off, they were bad decisions that were made that way by somebody at a subordinate level that really didn't have the skills to make the decision that was. And we wind up paying for it time and time again. And Health and Human Services has probably generated the biggest bulk of those historically. Maybe not recently, but historically. And I just don't want to see us go back into that realm.
Mistakes can still be made.
Yeah.
But we totally believe that if employees, and I was one of the biggest supporters of the one-year probation
I can
for
see
that very reason.
Yeah, I can see mistakes being made, but I don't want to see us create an institutional structure that tolerates and allows and condones mistakes being made on our, oops, well, we, did it again, sorry about that, I think we need to have a structure that is really solid and airtight so that those kind of situations don't continue to repeat themselves. And that's what Maria is concerned about.
And then, so, how does this work? Is this a promotion then for Eric to?
No,
Same sort of thing? It's,
no, he just gets an additional 15 staff to manage.
How many staff does he manage now currently?
About 45?
So he goes from 45 to 60? Can one person manage 60 people?
Well, he has
Eric
two, yeah,
Eric
he
can?
could. He has 2 program managers, he has a variety of supervisors. I mean, we manage that span of control so that no one has more than about 8 staff to manage. There's the drivers, we've got quite a few of those, but they're not full-time employees, and being part-time
So
extra
he
help.
primarily interacts with 8 different folks, and those 8 people will then interact with him. That's a
But he's on top of
that's
it,
a
just like
healthy-
I'm on top of it with them.
That's a healthy relationship there.
I just want to go on record that, I don't know, maybe disappointed might not be the right word, but I mean, I wish that we could have followed Maria's thing, but at the same time, I mean, I have faith, in you and Eric. I know you guys are hard-stern, and Maria didn't do it all on her own, of course not. She was part of the team.
She
And,
did a great
yeah,
job.
I mean, I'm gonna support your items, but I wanted to air it out and for the public. I wanted to go
Well,
on
I like this.
record.
I
wanted to address my concerns, but at the end of the day, I'm
Totally
gonna
understand.
give you my support.
I think, Mr. Chairman, there are legitimate concerns, and I'd like to have maybe in 3 months' time or something, a report. How's it going? How is this working out? Is it, are we achieving what we set out to do, or are we having, you know, some of the backsliding that can happen if we're not. I mean, I think it's,
And Eric and I already talked about that, giving regular reports to the board, because I know they are a topic of concern. It's a risky area for the county, although we have other risky areas in health and social services as well. But
and who does the job evaluations in this particular case? How is that?
the
handled?
supervisors
Structure?
write the performance evaluations for the line staff, and then they're reviewed by the program manager, or even the director, that'll be up to Eric, before they're given to the employee. Because, you know, sometimes supervisors don't see